Hi everybody, how are you doing? Welcome back to my channel. This is Beth, the African Storyteller at Chavila, also known as B. And today we're going to talk about how you can become an international school educator. And I know some people are interested in that. I have been asked by a lot of people, how did you get in? How do I get started? And things like that. I'm going to tell you how you can do that. But first, I will tell you why you should consider doing it. I will tell you some of the disadvantages or downsides of becoming an international school teacher. I'll tell you about my personal journey of how I got in. And then I will tell you other methods that I have seen work for other people that you can also use. And then in the end, I will tell you who exactly qualifies to become an international school teacher. Teaching is really old, and as long as there's a desire to learn, there will always be a need to teach. So I feel like it's a stable career for the most part. I know technology is coming on really forcefully. We're going to try and hang on and survive. During my talk, I'm going to try and use the CIE, IGCSE. I'm going to try and use the AP and the IB systems of education because I'm most well informed on those three. But there are literally tens of international education curriculums out there in the world. Why would you want to become an international school teacher? One, money, cheddar, mullah, securing that bag, having your bread and butter. And so it's obviously a very lucrative branch of teaching. Most schools that are of government curriculums in most places in the world do not pay teachers what they are worth. And in the end, teaching has always been one of the least desired professions. But I feel like international schools, because of the kind of clientele they carry, are leveling that play field where teaching is becoming a lucrative profession and you can make good money from teaching. So they not only give you a good salary, they give you really good benefit packages. So they give you really good health insurance, they give you really good travel allowances, they give you really good accommodation allowances. One of my employers, when I was pregnant with my twins, my delivery package from Bupa International, which is the insurance that my employer was using at that point, gave me 1.8 million shillings for delivering. And I know for an American this is a drop in the bucket because of how expensive American healthcare is, but for most people in the developing countries, we know that is a lot of money. And therefore I can't imagine, say, the local or the national employment agency for teachers being able to afford to give me that kind of healthcare. And this just goes on based on where you are, the ranking of what you do, the number of years experience, whatever. So it really is lucrative. And then the second reason why you want to become an international school teacher is because international schools not only have better working conditions, they have better infrastructure. So they have wonderfully built schools, and this is obviously because of the kind of clientele that prefer that kind of those kinds of schools. And not only that, your working conditions are going to be a lot better because they're trying to maintain an international standard. So your working hours are lesser, the number of kids you have in a class are fewer, and this really optimizes your abilities and makes you deliver the best of what you do. So better working conditions is obviously a big salary. Third advantage of being international school teacher is it's travel and adventure, and especially if you're an international school teacher outside of your own country. You get to travel the world, live in other people's spaces, see how they think and do things and absorb that. And it's such an amazing experience, especially for people who love adventure. You are not just working, but you are living some of your dreams. And I know that some places that my friends work, I'm like, whoa, that's like a dream destination. But they're living there, they're working there, and therefore, for people who love traveling and adventure and just experiencing the world from different spaces, this would be a dream for you. The fourth biggest advantage of international school teaching comes in so many points. There's like 4A, 4B, 4C, 4D. The fourth point is you become a citizen of the globe. You stop just being a Kenyan, an American, you stop being a German, you stop being a South African. You become a part of you represent where you come from when you're an international teacher. I worked for a school that had 49 different nationalities, and that was beautiful. It's like you're sitting in the UN assembly. It's just a representation of so many different cultures, colors, thinking, religion, so many, it's just rich. So when you're an international school teacher, you become an image of that. And I'll tell you, representing where you come from is extremely important for you to be able to influence the way the world perceives you. My friend Nyasha Blalock did a TED talk. I'll put the link in the description on the importance of visibility. Why you should make sure that you and your people are visible to the rest of the world. It matters that you are seen, that you're represented, that when you sit at that big table, your thoughts are put into accounting of the development of new knowledge, of the way people think. But it's also you helping create knowledge that is going to be passed on to the rest of the world, which is extremely important. The sixth reason why it's you want to become an international school teacher is because when you are an international school teacher, you are influencing the patterns of thinking and the way the world is going to operate in the near future, because you're not sending your students to just your national universities. Your students are going to Harvard, they're going to Oxford, they're going to Leeds, they're going to Cardiff, they're going to MIT, they're going to Stanford, they're going to some of the most respected Ivy League universities. And when they become the top politicians, when they become the top businessmen, when they become the top surgeons, they're going to make policy that is going to be considerate because they had experience of people from other spaces that may have been underly represented before. So you really you have an opportunity to make a really big difference on the people that you encounter. So it's really a nice feeling. Those are some of I think the 6 top advantages I can think of being an international school teacher. Now, there's some disadvantages that come with it. The first one being racism. This is everywhere. You know, when you are working in the space as an international school teacher, you're going to be looked at in a particular way because of where you come from, your passport or your race. And it's not everywhere, but it's in most spaces. So it's uncomfortable and you become part of the lesson. You become part of the people who bear the brunt for that kind of treatment. But things will shift hopefully soon, but it's still there, and most employment agencies are looking at that. The second biggest problem I think with international teaching is whenever you have to leave your country, you get homesick. You're gonna miss home. Like right now, honestly, I just want to have some ugali, some nyama choma, kachumbari, sukuma wiki, and a nice cold glass of KCC mala. Like that will have my life made, because I miss home food. As exquisite as Indian cuisine is, it's never going to fill that homely void in me that needs that. I have not been home in more than a year. I haven't seen my cows, my goats, my chicken. I haven't seen my house. I haven't seen my workers, my farm. I haven't seen my mom, my siblings, my nieces and nephews, my friends, my hairdresser. It's a really lonely kind of a profession. If you're moving around and you're married and you have kids, I'm lucky my husband does what I do, but if your husband or your wife is not a teacher and they are what is called a trailing spouse, sometimes they have to give up their own career to support yours. And it is unfortunate because some people will be resentful because of that. Some people at some point want to have their lives back, but they make sacrifices because they want their family to stay together. So that is the third, I think, biggest disadvantage, that families find it difficult. And if you have teenage kids, uprooting teenage kids from one point to another every couple of years is just really brutal on them, because teenagers really depend heavily on friendships. So they just learn how to make friends, blah 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 blah. People who are in my business, their kids are used to this. They adapt so fast. but it does have long-term effects on them that are not all positive. And then there are some untouchable areas. That is the fourth disadvantage. If you're looking to work, say, my dream would be to work in Scandinavia, especially Denmark or Norway, because we have a lot of family in that area. But the first consideration is for people who have the EU, who belong to the EU. We don't. And then if you don't belong to the EU, but you're an expert of an area that they can't access from the EU, then you can have consideration for that. It is not impossible, it's just extremely difficult. So there's some areas that are untouchable by specific passport holders, which is unfortunate, but it happens. It's one of the disadvantages. And then there's varying payments. And these varying payments, let me put it together with another point, number 5, which is not all international teaching curriculums are equal. Some are more equal than others. So using the 3 that I promised to use as examples, you have the IGCSE, the AP, and the IB. For if you're working as a teacher in your own country for an international school, chances are you're making considerably lesser than foreigners working for that international school. I understand why, and now I'm a beneficiary of that, being outside of my own country. Sometimes you don't pay taxes. Sometimes they pay you a little bit more because you're a foreigner. You're not going to be able to access, some of the cheaper facilities. You have to live in certain neighborhoods because they're going to make you feel a lot more comfortable, and you're going to maybe see other people that are of your kind or things like that, or they will offer you travel allowance because they want you to be able to go home and back, as opposed to the local employees. When I worked in international schools in Kenya, this used to piss me off, because sometimes you feel like you're doing more, sometimes you feel like you're working harder, you're better qualified, and then there's foreigner just making a couple of grand more than you, and you're like, ah. I understand the frustration, and this can be a problem, especially if you are within your own country. So this is an issue. But remember point number 5, not all international systems are equal, which is ridiculous. But when I started out teaching, I was an IGCSE teacher. When I wanted to get into the IB, the teachers who were teaching IB were guarding that door with their entire careers. They were like, no. Nobody wants to let you just, let me come be a shadow teacher. Like, I don't understand. Why can't you just hold other people's hand? It's a candle. If you lie to others, you don't lose anything of your own life. It's a big cake we can all eat and still have leftovers. But teachers are just that way because it's the higher paying, better curriculum, the IB. You find that most teachers that are in it are not really supporting and roping in the other teachers in the school. It really used to frustrate me. And now it's my goal. When I work in my present institution, I try to make sure that we are all sharing so that we pass it on to other people. It is the same thing, but it's different. And I know for all international schools and local schools are thinking, it's not the same thing. It feels the same because you're like, we all are teachers. We are qualified to teach. It's just different curriculums. And all you have to do is make small, tiny tweaks on methodology and content. Otherwise, it's pretty much the same thing. So it becomes an issue there that you may want to be aware of. And then the last issue that I want to talk about that you may encounter as an international teacher is constant change. There is so much evolution that goes on in education. You know that. And even now in lockdown, teaching has had to suddenly shift from the traditional form to online teaching. We only had like 3 seconds to make that transition. You, my friend, have to be adaptable. You have to be able to shift from here to here in a nanosecond. Otherwise, you don't fit into the international system. International curriculums try to keep up with global trends. The way people live should be reflected in the way people learn. And therefore, because life is shifting so much, educational methodology, content delivery, and all that shifts really quickly. It then gets tied in with another point, which is it gets expensive. You have to update each other. So for example, I teach TOK, Theory of Knowledge. Suddenly the syllabus changed. And for me to be able to learn about the new syllabus and to really be on top of my game, I can't just read the new syllabus that has been released. I have to attend a workshop. Most of those workshops are like at least $400. So that is like basic. You're paying to just, kind of make sure that you are keeping up with the system changes. So there's so many changes that happen. You have to be malleable, you have to be flexible, you have to be adaptable. Otherwise you do not fit in, and this becomes really difficult, especially for the veteran teachers who are used to doing things the way they know how to, and it works. Why do you want to fix what's not broken? It's not broken really. It's just like if you have the old PC and somebody's giving you the new MacBook. It's not like your PC is broken, it's just the MacBook is much more efficient. So we're going to move in that direction. So it's kind of the same thing. I'll tell you about my personal journey of how I became an international school teacher. Anybody who knows me will tell you, I'm a hustler. If I put my mind to anything, I'll achieve it. And it's not just my hustling, it's also a bit of luck, a bit of hard work, a bit of this, it's a bit of everything. I trained in Asubi Teachers Training College to get my teaching certification because my mom thought teaching was a safe career. I didn't want to do it, but I did it because mama knows best. And in the end, when I finished, teaching was such a bad career for, at least at my age. I went into TTC when I was barely 18. And I was just like, that was the end of my life. Thank God for friendships I met there. They made me survive the 2 years. But when I finished, I went to work for a school called Midwestern Academy that was owned by a really close cousin friend of my mom's. And his family welcomed and embraced me. And now they are part of they live in my heart. They're my friends and they're my family, and I love them to bits. They made my stay there so wonderful. And it was the national curriculum. I worked for them, but then I had to leave because I had to go to university to further my studies. I majored in art and minored in French. And at that time, I was also hustling as an artist, freelance. And in my hustles, I bumped into Joy Mboya at the Go Down, South B, those who know what I'm talking about. And she introduced me, she sent me actually to Ramoma Gallery that used to be at Rahimtula Towers in Upper Hill. And she told me to go in the gallery and ask for a program that was being run by the Ford Foundation that was helping artists from disadvantaged financial backgrounds to expose their art. So I went and they took me in, and for months I was working for them. And one of my facilitators was Tabitha WaThuku. She's a very talented artist. I'll put her Facebook page link in my description so that you can look her up. She is an amazing artist. She was one of my facilitators, and the other one was she Scottish? I think she was Scottish. A lady called Pat Kay. And she was a teacher at Hillcrest International School. After doing art for a while, I don't know, people spoke in my ears. They're like, you're talented, why you want to learn it, why are you doing this? And then at school, French was becoming a bit of a trick, and there was this teacher that was dreading to be in her class the following year because apparently she had something against me, and I dropped those two subjects and I majored in English literature and language. And at that point, I called Pat up because I was financially struggling, and I said, come on, Pat, like my art is not selling as well, and could you kindly like help me look for something? And she was like, but you already have your teaching certificate. I was like, yes. She was like, come over at Hillcrest, I'll talk to Mr. Drew. The principal happened to be her husband. So I went up, and they're like, we can't give you employment because you don't have your B.Ed yet, but we'll make you a shadow teacher. Are you okay with that? Come on now, I'm my mama's child. My mom said when that door cracks this much, squeeze yourself in, like get in by all means. I was like, even if it's my pinky finger or my pinky toe coming in, I'm coming in. So I got in, and Pat, I used to work with her because she was the art teacher there, and I'd help out in the art room. And of course, little projects come up and you help other people out and you get little tips here and there. So I wasn't exactly not making any money, but officially by the school book, I wasn't making any money. So I worked there, and suddenly the English department started having needs. Mr. Colin was the head of English department at that time, took me under his wing, gave me a few classes, gave me a few projects to help around with. And at that time, people were just giving me tips and, for all the help I was doing and all that. But for a whole year, I was there shadow teaching and just doing things. And this earned me a letter saying that I worked there. And at that point, I had to leave because I was going to Upper Hill Boys in so for I think 4 months. I worked there, which was a really good experience. Again, I'm a hustler. I used to mark papers, do this, do that, and earn little monies here and there. And eventually, when I left, I had to go back to Hillcrest because they told me if I ever need to, they will consider me if I'm looking for employment. When I went back, they didn't have an opening for me, but there was an opening at Brookhouse International School. In my opinion, it was a step up. And they recommended me. So Brookhouse called, interviewed me, and I got the job. I worked at Brookhouse for I think 5 or 6 months before I got fired. Story for another day. Anyway, I left Brookhouse and I was staying with my sister, and I forgot that I had employed for Aga Khan in Dar es Salaam. They called me up. And that at that time, Fidelis Ntenge, who was the head teacher there, but now works at the top of the IB system. See what I told you about visibility and representation? She called me, she interviewed me, she liked me, she hired me, and that is how I got my first international teaching job outside. So my journey represents the first method of getting in, which is giving or showing doing it pro bono, doing it free for experience. So you can go to any international school in your country, in your neighborhood, in your city, wherever, and ask if you can work for them for free for experience. I know it hurts, and especially in the economy that we are living in right now, but it's in the long run going to be such a huge payoff because it is extremely difficult to get in international school in an international school without any experience with international education. So getting that experience is paramount. You want to do it even if it's free. It's struggle through, like I said, if you're a true hustler, you're going to make a few coins here and there. So that is the first method. The second method is you can just randomly, with your bachelor in education, go online and make applications. People are lucky out there. They just might, you never know, school might just call you. Make an effort to just visit, just type in international schools in Joburg or international schools in Geneva. I don't know where your city is. Just type that in. You'll get a whole list. Apply to each one of the schools. Tell them you're an enthusiastic person. You have this qualification and you wish to work for them. That works for some people. Third, you can use employment agencies. So there are some agencies that represent international teachers in international schools. You register with them. Most of them charge, some of them are free, but most of them will charge a small fee. I am represented by Search Associates. There are other, let me just mention some of them so that you can look them out, and I will also put their links in the description so that you can look them up. You have ISS, you have TIE, you have Search Associates, you have TES, and for especially I think Kenyans or Africans looking to go to the US, there's Faces. And Faces will literally walk you through the whole process of trying to get you a job and situated in one of the provinces, I think, in the United States. But these other ones that I mentioned, the first four, those ones can get you anywhere in the world. Such Associates is the biggest, I think, because they have the largest database on teachers looking for international teaching jobs and schools looking for international teachers. So when you register with them, they'll give you a form, you fill it out. If there's a fee that has to be paid, like Such Associates, I think charges $225 for 3 years. It's a bit of money, but it's a good investment, and that money lasts as long as you're not employed. If you get employed somewhere in the middle, then that fee is done, and if you have to redo it again with them, you have to pay another $225. They represent me. I'm very happy with them. I have secured employment through them quite a few times. So this is the most tested and tried and tested method of getting a good position in good international schools. The other method that you can use to get in is by networking. So do you know someone who knows someone who works in international schools? You gotta be willing to start at the bottom, though. I know we live in a world of instant gratification, but this you gotta be patient with. Some people are lucky. That is another method. Luck. You're just walking and boom, an international teaching job hits you on the head. No, I mean, some people really do just bump into opportunities. When you meet people, mention it. If you know somebody who works for an international school, be willing to start at the bottom. Be willing to do some things, maybe for lesser or no money. As long as you know what your end goal is, you're focused and you know what you need to do. So you do what has to be done. Those are some of the really good ways in which you can get into international teaching. And who can become an international teacher becomes the next question. The most obvious way is to have a bachelor in education. To add on to that, if you have an international teaching certificate, ooh, that makes you like uber valuable. So this you can get online. There's some like Teach Now. I'll put their link up in the description. They offer courses online, about $900 a pop. That's quite a bit of money, but it takes 9 months, and they're giving you a certification that is going to last you the rest of your career, and it's good. If you have the teaching certification, what it says is you have the methodology that it takes to become an international school teacher, and therefore can be trusted by any country, anywhere in the world. And you can get those contracts. Some countries have their own specialist requirements and certifications, especially in the US. I think in the UK as well, there's some qualifications that if you wanted to work in a school there, you'd have to research and know what they need and do the training and get the certification and then apply. So that could be something that you might want to look up. And then if you are an expert in your area, so you're a really gifted pianist, singer, drummer, painter, and you're looking to teach. Teaching is now more interested in giving students usable, practical knowledge as opposed to theory. So some specialist areas will actually consider an expert, even if they don't have a bachelor in education or a teaching background. Former colleague had a doctorate in communicable diseases, and because he understood this, the school gave him a teaching job as a biology teacher. If you're an astrophysicist and you want to be a physics teacher, hey, go for it. Most schools will probably overlook your lack of a bachelor in education because your expertise in your area overshadows it, and they'll give you an opportunity. So there's quite a bit of information there that we can talk about in another video. But for now, thank you very much for watching. I hope I have taught you a thing or two. I hope you have found this useful. Kindly leave a comment, like, subscribe, share with your friends, and hit on that notification bell. Have a good time. Cheers, and see you next time. Thank you. Bye.